welcome everyone. There we go. We've got a bit of sound. It's always nice to have that, isn't it? You can just hear a little bit more clearly. Thank you for being here. About 10 minutes ago, my panellists and I were sitting here wondering whether we'd be welcoming anyone, but you've all made it upstairs, 8:30 on a Tuesday morning. Thanks for being here. So my name is Chloé James. I'm the Group Media Director at RFI Group. My pleasure to be moderating this panel this morning all around payments in the small business space. A little bit about RFI Group in case you don't know us, and our Managing Director is actually also on our panel this morning. We are a global data-driven strategic insights provider focused exclusively on financial services. So what that means is we do research in the banking and financial services community solely. So we don't look at anything else but just banking and financial services. We talk to over 500,000 consumers and 100,000 businesses every year about their relationship with their banking products, and then feed that information back to our clients who are banks and FIs and other providers around what their customers are saying about them. So this is a really exciting topic for us to be talking about today, and I'm really pleased to be here. A little bit about me, just because it really does align really well with what we're talking about today. I'm obviously Australian. I moved to Canada about 8 months ago, but in Australia I was also a host on the Sky News Business Channel, which is the equivalent of sort of a Bloomberg BNN, and I had a number of shows and they actually focused around small business. So one of them was called Business Success, and it was me talking to small business owners about what it takes to create a successful business. So really exciting to hear how they can really drive their business, but growing from all different sorts of perspectives. And also another show called The Enterprise, so another small business focus show. So it's a topic of interest, really relevant to me. I love it. I love the small business community and industry. It's a huge industry in Australia, makes up 98% of businesses, and also in Canada obviously as well. Our panel will talk to this, but a huge part of the lifeblood of our communities, the small business space. So without further ado, I'm going to take my seat and welcome my panel, and then we'll kick into things. As they're coming up to the stage, I'll introduce them. So Jeremy Altman, who's the Vice President for Strategic Partnerships at Paysafe. Chiron, Siri, my colleague, who is the Managing Director North and Latin America for RFI Group, and Randy Johal, who is the Director of Product Management at Central One Credit Union. So we've got a lot to get through today. I'm going to join them, but we're going to talk about SMEs, who they are, how that's changed over time, challenges. We're going to talk about relationship management, so the relationships that you have with your SMEs, if you in fact look after them, or if you're an SME, the kind of relationship you have with your providers. We'll talk about digital. That's obviously very, very prevalent and relevant. Innovation, modernisation. We couldn't be at the Payments Canada Summit not talking about modernisation, such a huge area of interest for them, the future global. And then we'll do a Q&A session. So we've got about 55 minutes on the clock now. We'll discuss for, I think, about sort of 35, 40 minutes. But if you have a pressing question, please just throw your hand up. But I will open it up to questions at the end. So please join me in welcoming the panel. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So we've got a great session here. As I've said, anyone over that side, if you can't see us, I can't see you. You don't have to see me, but if you wanted to move to this side, we're more than welcome to just move on over. But as people are just finding their places, I think it's always great to start a panel really with the sort of who you are, what you do, what brings you here. So Randy, I'm going to begin with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you to the summit, and your sort of area of interest, particularly on this topic.
Yeah, perfect. So my name is Randy Johal. I basically lead an area at Central One, and for those that don't know who Central One are, it's essentially a sort of cooperative-owned company that provides services across the credit union system as well as some banks. And my role specifically is to build out transformative digital experiences on both small business and the larger business area. So what are the typical kind of things you want to see? What are the experiences you want to see? So that's where I'm primarily involved at the moment. And really what attracted me to here is that we've done some work on small business. We've launched a couple of products in the marketplace through online banking, which are quite unique. But the one thing I noticed small businesses, I actually believe the way the marketplace is changing and what small business is going to drive a lot of your retail and your commercial opportunities going forward as well. So I think small business in effect could be a real driver, and that's what excites me about when we talk about small business and payments. What does that actually mean for your whole business model, not just small businesses?
Absolutely. Thanks, Randy. Siri?
So hi everyone. I'm not going to do the whole intro that Chloé just did. I'm just going to add. So I'm in charge of the market research company in the regions. We do have a lot of studies on the SME and commercials where we look at the way they bank, the way they pay, also all the innovations they are interested in. So we do that in an ongoing basis, like twice a year. So we do have a pretty good grip on what they are looking for, what are the pain points, and the expectations, and how we can service them better, because it's really an underserved, especially SMEs, really an underserved segment. So I'm really glad that I'm going to share some of that with you today.
Fantastic. Jeremy?
Nice. Hi everyone. My background is in sales and M&A, as well as strategy, and I'm now with Paysafe. You can tell from my accent that I'm French, from France.
With the French connection today.
Yeah, true. And I moved to Canada about 2 years ago, and I'm with the Paysafe group, which is a large player today in the space of in the payment space, which is a unique differentiator will be that we are both B2B and B2C. We serve north of 270,000 SMBs right now, mostly out of North America, but not only. And I'm very excited with this space because a lot is going on right now. And I'm very happy to discuss what are the current trends and how we can improve payments and financing for that category.
Fantastic. So you've got two French, a Brit and an Aussie, but I can promise you that we do know what's going on in the Canadian market, but we will bring a global expertise to the conversation today. Thank you all so much for introducing yourself. It's really helpful to know who's on stage when you're watching them. Now, we had a pre-panel phone call ahead of this panel session, and the panelists asked me they'd really like to know who's in the room. So I'm going to now throw it over to the audience, and it's just going to be a show of hands, but we really would like a makeup of exactly who's in the room today, and then we'll obviously be able to give answers based on that. So it's an old-fashioned poll. I'm going to list a couple of options that I had, and then I'll come back, and if you could just throw your hand up. So we've got, if you identify with being from this kind of organisation, so we've got a traditional financial institution, a bank, a neobank or a disruptor, an online startup, a scale-up, someone with a small retail footprint, so a small business, maybe a more traditional kind, and an academic. So just a show of hands. So who is from a bank? Traditional bank. There you go. Fantastic. So we've got about sort of, well, I don't know, like 20%. Do you want to go percentages?
20 people. Yeah.
20 people, and then a neobank disruptor, a smaller, new to entrant market. Okay. Maybe 5 or 6, fantastic. Online startup, so purely in that online space, awesome. So we've got one of those, 2 of those, great. A scale up, someone who's scaling up and growing. Yeah, we're going for scale, so maybe 1 or 2. Small retail footprint or a small business. Okay, cool. So this is industry-wise, so we can really think of that. So no small businesses in the room, and an academic or educator. Okay, cool. So we've got about sort of 5 or 6 of those. So that's a really good, actually. Thank you for that. Just to have that makeup of the room before we go into conversations, because then we really know. So I think this is really an industry conversation, and that's interesting when it comes to small business. And I guess we're going into the challenges, right, of how we're going to face them. So, okay, now we know who all of the panelists and myself is. We know everybody in the room. Let's start off by talking about who the SME is. And we had a really interesting conversation on our pre-panel call. Jeremy, and I think you raised it. It was around how much SMEs have really changed over time. So let's just go back 10 years, and SMEs are very sort of traditional. Was it you, Randy, or Jeremy?
I think it's a bit of both.
A bit of both, yeah. And then now, you know, the small business landscape, if you like, is really changing. So let's frame it in the sense of who are the different kinds of SMEs that we're really seeing across Canada today?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, so just one thing on that. SMEs are, to me, they are like small owners, and they behave like a consumer. So what they are seeking when they do payments, it's around security, convenience, trust. It has to work anytime, anywhere, as a consumer. So that's how the SME or SMB owner is managing his business today. Whether it's a freelancer, whether it's a a startup that is growing with a few people, or even if it's 50, 60 people, ownership of the tools and access to information, to advice, it's critical. So the rise of the gig economy has been a huge trend, and I'm sure, Randy, you can comment on that. So right now, I would say you have more and more micro SMEs that you didn't have maybe 10 years ago. And the trend to be self-employed, autonomous worker, entrepreneur is now something very common, right? But you are SMB in that category, and you behave as a consumer, and you're seeking security, convenience in everything you do, and instant access.
And I would say, and that's spot on, Jeremy. I would say one of the things when we were looking at small businesses, and some critique I've said is, if you look at even local companies in Toronto like FreshBooks and Sensible, they'll talk about the rise of something they call independent workers. And independent workers really are, to what Jeremy called, often like they may be working, they may have professional designations, they may be accountants, they may be freelancers. They may even use digital platforms like the gig platforms of Upsell or Freelancer, Upwork, those kind of things.
Yep.
The thing that you'll notice when you look at the stats, even for those reports, and they came at the back end of 2018, is that in the US economy, there are millions of people that are planning to leave full-time permanent employment to become effectively part of this new independent workers, which is what you call these kind of like micro businesses. It is a staggering number. It's absolutely staggering. We're not talking hundreds of thousands, we're talking millions of people. So I think Sensible had something in the region of 25 to 30 million were looking to move into this. So in Central One, we have an economist who looks at it. So I said to our economist, Brian New, I said, Brian, what's the score here with Canada? He goes, can you look at the stats between 2014 and 2017 and just let us know what is the growth of these really small businesses? And what we notice is that on average, when you look at businesses of all scales, whether it be plus 20 employees, down to micro owner employees, you were getting a growth about 1 to 3%. But for those independent businesses with just owner businesses, they had a 10.4% increase just in the last, between 2014 and 2017. And so what you're in effect getting is you're getting a new marketplace, a new dynamism within the economy. And the critique I would say is that, are you in fact saying that the SME is a future employee? They're not actually a permanent full-time employee, but they are a small business. So when you think of your retail strategy, do you think about these micro independent workers who may have sporadic income, that your whole mentality around how you serve a retail customer may have to change based on what the growth of this independent worker is. I think that's one of the things that, when we think of the changing need, this sort of dynamism around using digital platforms to earn your money, not having the permanent full-time gigs that, for one reason or another, are reduced to some extent. We know in our own company there's a lot of contractors and independent workers. So that kind of dynamism is going to fundamentally change the banking model going forward. And that's where I think it's interesting.
I think that's where the relationship part comes in as well, because a lot of these people are obviously straddling and doing sort of a more traditional role while they're starting up something like this, and then they have those expectations of what they receive from their other banking relationships.
Yeah, sorry, we see that as well in our study, but we also see a number of groups a little bit smaller than the one that become more professional services independent. So a lot of small retailers that are using international platforms, like are selling on Amazon or eBay. More and more of them are starting their own thing. And then those small, they're very macro companies, like it could be, I don't know, somebody who just create jewelry and selling online. And those macro SMEs who are very local, but have this exposure to a global market and those global platforms because they can sell anywhere. And they behave like consumer. They will use Canada Post, like any things that, very basic things to kind of engage with the customers. And their banking needs are very different.
Yeah.
And they are retails, but not the retails that we used to know. And they have access to a lot of tools via those big platforms, the Amazons, all of that give them a lot of information, also tools to run their business and also pay and accept payments. And they're starting slowly to get away from those banking needs. And they're really looking for, I don't want to go to the bank, but I want the bank to come to me because those platforms are going to them and are really treating them like super mini heroes. So those SMEs are really have the profile of a very macro local company, but they also have this global footprint. So we need to think of the way we talk to them differently as well.
You're touching on two very interesting things here. One is international, and second is relationship management. During the Global Payment Summit or Banking Summit, was that in March, one of the presenters said it's kind of abnormal that you can get your Amazon delivery in 1 hour or 1 day in a few cities, but if you have an international payment, it can take up to a week, right, for the settlement. And that's the problem that company wanted to solve. And it has never been so easy as today to create a company, to start up as an entrepreneur, being a merchant on a marketplace, being a consultant. At the same time, and you have all the tools, you have the cloud, you have so many software that you can start as a monthly subscription to really start up your business. You have so many CRMs and accounting tools to help you out. That's great. At the same time, it's never been that complex just to get paid, just to manage your business. You need so many resources,
So
lawyers.
many knowledge as well.
Yeah, you have to be a mini expert on so many topics. So that's for this international piece. But on top of that, because you're so busy building your business, trying to change the world at your scale and with what you have in mind, you want the bank to come to you, as you said, and you don't want to be from a 9-to-5 relationship. So you need the advice and you need the quality relationship here. A study that we looked at Paysafe in Canada said that 32% of Canadian SMBs feel recognized and understood by their bank, which means that roughly 7 in 10 are not appreciated or understood by their bank today. That's a big gap. Imagine you have that in your family for the husband and wife. 7 in 10 is not understood by the husband or by the wife. It's going to lead to big issues in the family. So
It's a good analogy, I like it.
so we need to pay attention because relationship and communication is key here. So if I'm not understood well enough by my bank, what's going to be the future of that relationship? So it all starts with what are my needs and how can my bank better serve me, right?
I want to dive into the relationship piece, but Siri, our stats are pretty much
it's
equal
exactly
to that,
the
right?
same. We have around 35%, I would say. We say that they feel that understood, like they understand their needs, and they feel like they are actually loved.
And is that at the higher scale of an SME? As in, is it the sort of
it's actually really all SMEs. So for us, when we look at SMEs, 0 to 10 million, and it's like a global feeling.
Okay.
We do have kind of the same feeling even for the higher scales, but it's really much stronger among SMEs. Obviously, it's a little bit stronger when you have the macro SMEs, but the feeling is the same. It's just the need is different and the interaction is different. But I completely agree with you. Like they keep saying, they don't understand me, and I don't have the time. The 9 to 5, not for me. 9 to 5 is when I actually do my work. Like it's actually when I make money. I'm gonna do my business and all my admin on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning. I don't have time to walk up to the branch and ask questions. And I don't even know what to ask. Like I don't even know where to start.
So let's go on to that point then. I do want to dive into relationships, but let's go back a step. And I think it's very interesting to look at do SMEs generally in this landscape, let's keep it to Canada, know what they need. We talk about products and services and, do they know what they need? Randy, would you like to kick off on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think when you really dig down under the surface, when you look at SMEs, they may think they know, sometimes you realize the difference between what they want and what they actually need. You need to get into the underlying drivers of behavior. What really drives their needs? And when we did some work, when we were identifying some products to launch through online banking, one of the things that we noticed small businesses is it was really around 3 key areas. One was around Can you save me time with something which isn't necessarily core to my business, but I have to do? The other one, which was more of a conscious indicator, is can you save me money, which you know about. It comes through on all your surveys, but often it was to save me time. And the third one that came through as interesting was, can you provide me some peace of mind? To your point around relationship, if I'm asleep as a business owner, do you as a financial institution have my back? Yeah. Right? Are you watching out for things on my behalf? And so when you get into the kind of like underlying drivers and then you start to align those to what your products and services are, if you can hear, particularly the save you time and save peace of mind, it really drives satisfaction and NPS of your small businesses. So that's what we've sort of focused in a lot on that. What can we cut and what's really important? So we know that receivables are really important for small business. We know that CRA payments are really important. These are the two things that often keep you up at night, right? And if you can address those two areas with products and services, then I think that really does have an upscale in terms of what they think of you. But I think, just conceptually, there's an important point here, and I think it was interesting. I heard a CEO of a fintech tell me this. They go, Randy, if you watch TED Talks and see, Dr. Atwell Gawande, now this guy has developed something quite revolutionary in terms of checklists for surgeries. But he talked about medicine. He said, we thought medicine was about survival. He goes, but it's not. It's about wellness. And he goes, we're in the banking era. If you relate that same concept, banking is not so much about showing balances on an electronic Excel sheet. It's about the financial wellness of that business. There are still too many businesses that go out of business, even though they have customers, because often cash flow and receivables are things they don't truly understand. So as a financial institution, we have to do much better understanding of how we address that financial wellness issue of those small businesses, as opposed to just showing accounts and making payments in a left-hand navigation.
Yeah, and it comes back to really understanding and understanding what the business is about, who they are, what they do, what's important to them.
So to add to that, in the medical field, you have a doctor, so you have someone to talk who is knowledgeable about your issue. In a bank, for SMB's relationship, who do you go to? Yeah. So you have this VIP account manager. They are great. All the research says that when you're treated or cared with that kind of VIP account manager, you're in a good shape. Yeah. You have your financial wellness. Yeah. But whenever you're just dealt with the level 1 account management, not so good. Yeah. And that research showed that the level of satisfaction was below the one from people with no account management. So whether you go to the doctor or you don't see anyone, that was my conclusion of that on that piece.
I completely agree. We see exactly the same on our studies. Those who have an RM are definitely more satisfied, feel they are more understood, but not all of them are access to an RM, as you say. And they do turn to those tools, those platforms, those big technology that come in, or fintech that come and give them solutions. You're right, they don't know what they don't know, and payment and receivable is very important. When they start a business, they know they have to get paid and pay, but they don't understand in the middle, there's a cash flow things, and you don't get paid, the money doesn't come right away. So they use check a lot, we all know that. They use check because they feel more secure that they know this payment system, but they don't take into account that sometimes it can take time for a check to clear, and maybe you expected to have it today, and then the person is going to do in the next 2 weeks, and you didn't have the fund at the time. So all those tiny things, things that they learned on the job in some way, and nobody is there to explain it to them. This is what's going to happen to you. So the banks is not, those technology platforms are not necessarily explaining, but they're giving them tools to view and kind of project in some way. So that are the things that kind of replacing the RM slowly, but there's still this need to educate at the start. Did you know when you start your business, this is all the things you're going to go through, and there is a massive learning curve.
Hold my hand.
Yeah, hold my hand. It's exactly that. So we keep saying at RFI to be the growth partner. It's really that. It's really that. Just go them through the journey, and every single journey is different. You cannot have. I wish they would have all the same. That would make my life easier. But every single journey is really different, and needs to be understood clearly. and they are not technically.
In relationship management, we often say that the level of satisfaction of a customer, so in our case, an SME owner, is equal to their level of expectation. So if I have very high expectations, no matter what my banker will do, I will be not satisfied because I'm too demanding, right? So today, if I create if I started my business and I go to any bank, if my level of expectation is very low because I need a checking account, I just need to move some money very easy, I'm invoicing a few customers, I have very low expectations, I'm not going to be that disappointed. It works. But if I come and I have some custom needs, I need a loan, I need some international capabilities, I need access to a modern app with chat, for example, well, I will be very disappointed because my expectations are not what current banks traditionally are offering. And at the same time, if I go to this new neobank, challenger bank, or digital banks, whatever we call them, I have a higher level of expectations. I can be easily disappointed as well because I chose to go to that specialized firm for my objectives. I could be really disappointed. Take the example in food against the wedding earlier. If I'm starving now, I can go to any food corner. I will get food, right? And I have choice with pizza, Chinese, everything. If I'm in the search now for the best pasta in Toronto, I will ask a few people, where should I get the best pasta? Oh, you should go to that restaurant. I have higher expectation. I'm not just starving. I want the best pasta in town. It's the same with banking here. If I want to have the best small loan features, I will go to that provider. And therefore, I will be very, very demanding.
Yeah, and
right?
disappointed if it doesn't
Possibly.
go your way. I love all your analogies, Jeremy. They're amazing. This is the panel of analogies. So we're talking about building and rebuilding better relationships. It's obviously such a challenge. We opened the session today looking at who was in the room, and we did see that we had a lot of traditional financial institutions in the room. Big $64,000 question then. What's it going to take? How challenging is it for them in the market today to really meet the needs of SMEs in your opinion? And this is really great advice about how you need to understand these businesses. You need to really kind of get under the bonnet of them. How difficult is that, and how can they go about doing that? I'm thinking about relationship managers. Do they need to be industry specific so they really understand that industry and therefore they can look after all the participants in that industry together? I'm interested in your thoughts.
I think, well, yes, obviously the more expert, the better. But I do think even start even earlier. The day they rock up in the bank and just have this conversation. Hi, I'm opening small business. I would like a small business account. Let's maybe start have the conversation right now and just talk about their payment needs or anything on needs or just educating them right away. And also make sure that you provide information, understand where they go, how they interact. They go to a lot of, there's a lot of communities like meetup groups or anything, then they go and then talk to each other. So making sure you're present in all the different touch points. Obviously, having an expert, this is what they will want, and I agree with you, the expectation, you want more and more, and there is always this thing that their business is their babies, and nobody will understand their babies better than them. That's just kind of international, but making sure you are there during all the steps and just say, I'm here, having my back, like peace of mind are very important. But I would think it's really at the start and having those conversations. You're starting a business, let me talk to you and take you through the process. But also in a bank, I always say that to everyone I talk to, making sure you all have a service, a product. You don't have, if I want an issue with loans, then I'm going to that way of the bank. If I have payments, I'm going to that way of the bank, and you don't see the overall relationship with the client, and not only looking at them at silos and trying to see one service, one experience. And if they do even use different platforms, that's okay, trying to see why and trying to understand. Having conversations technically would be the starting point before putting somebody, hey, you're a florist, here is the expert on florists.
So 100% agree. You need to have the conversations, but you need also to build in all the account managers that empathy, spirit. And one way of doing so is through training. I would love to start, if I'm going to start my career in a bank as an account manager, I would love to start my first week or first few days at one of the clients for just watching how it's going to be for him, his business, what are the daily issues they have. I'd love to better understand what it takes to be successful in his shoes or her shoes, so that when I come back to my account management role, I can better understand, yes, he's busy, he has a factory, it's very noisy, I'm going to text him, I'm going to send him an email, I'm not going to disturb him. Yes, he has a need because he wants to import from Europe that kind of goods, so let me check with my internal experts and I will come with a solution, not just, oh, I don't know. And that kind of behavior is something you can be trained for. Like at school, we teach the kids, sorry for a third analogy, with the growth mindset. I can do it. No, I cannot do it yet, but I will get there. And it's the same for SMB's relationship. I don't know the flower business. Okay, but I can learn. And maybe if I go with a specific training, I can better understand what it takes to import flowers from Holland and help my client to better serve their customers, right? So training is key so that you can have this empathy and great or greater relationship.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point about what FI should do. Because to me, when you look at the scale of the number of small businesses out there, you have to ask yourself, it's not viable for them all to be managed relationships, right? So if it's not, what you need to look at is what are the high level experiences that they get. So Bob in the branch, who's been a small business advisor for a long time and maybe hasn't rotated as in the credit union, you get some people who've been there a long time. When their customer comes in, they know about them, they know their marketplace, they know their industry because they've been dealing with them for a long time. They know what next products and what time they'll need them as a result. So you've got that kind of service that you're providing in the branch. But then when you go to the digital channel, you've got nothing. You've got no form of personalization, no understanding as to the industry they're in, no understanding as to what that next available product is they need. You'll have banner ads that tell you, get this promotion here, but it's not personalized based on what's happening within that business. So how do you go from Bob, who's in the branch that knows a lot of things, to Bob, who's online that knows nothing? And that's what the big dichotomy is with financial institutions, is that you have to get Bob's experience on the digital to reflect that of an experienced small business account manager, right? And that requires some form of understanding as to data and personalization. It's like Amazon, and I heard it was a frivolous example, not like yours, Jeremy, but I heard someone was telling me the other day, they said they order toilet paper through Amazon. And the recommendation is based on the history of it when they need it again. So that level of personalization that Amazon has tells them when they need to reorder their toilet paper. I mean, if that isn't personalization, I don't know what is. But that kind of concept is almost non-existent when it comes to banking for small businesses at the moment. So how do you build that level of personalization on scale? I think is a real challenge, but it's an interesting one. And I think, with all due respect, a lot of fintechs have done a way better job at doing this, right? They categorize the transactions. They provide insights. They provide an insights engine that tells them something back, right? That kind of level of awareness, what's happening in the business, is absolutely critical. And that's why, to some extent, you see a disparity between what we still provide, which is changing, but what the fintechs provide. There is this kind of like gap in the market.
And there is also, it's very important, choice. And they want to do things the way they want. So not all the time they want to have this level of expertise. Sometimes they just want to do something very quick. And they don't need to have, if they want to talk to someone, they want to be able to talk to someone. If they want to chat, they want to be able to chat. And sometimes they just don't want to talk to anyone and just don't want to do quick things. So it's very important to give them the choice and they be able to decide how they want to interact. And it's absolutely very right. Because if they decide to go to the branch, and then they go online, they don't have the same experience, and it's difficult. This is where you have those friction to say like, well, why don't I have the same level of experience? So, but the choice is very important.
Yeah.
But the gap, if I may here, the gap between the coolest fintech out there and the traditional bank, it's big. Okay, no question on that. When I started in payments 12, 13 years ago, fintech was not even a buzzword at that time. And we were always against the bank, against the legacy providers. And when fintech became something, right, all the banks were like, oh, this is not secure enough, this is not PCI compliant, you should not have your data, your payments with that company. So this was the beginnings. And a few years after it was, oh, let's partner, let's acquire them, let's team up. And nowadays, I think it's the best of the two worlds, because you can have your traditional bank account in a robust, stable bank, right? Canadian banks are the best in the world, the most stable in the world. So it's just fantastic. As an SMB owner, I can sleep well because I know my bank is not going to disappear the next morning. But at the same time, if my bank can recommend me the best products for analytics, CRM, accounting, everything, I will be thrilled, right? Paysafe is partnering right now with companies like Paytm, with paysimply.ca. It helps any SMB owner to pay online their bills, their tax, their utilities. It's fantastic. But I would love my banker to call me and say, hey, Jeremy, for your business, stop doing that type of payment with paper check. Go on paysimply.ca, go on that tool. It's fantastic. I have no ownership, no stakes in it. I have no skin in the game. I just think it's the best tool for you. Save time and be happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Jeremy. So the question I would say is that if you provide that service for an FI, what information would you provide back to the FI to provide back to their customer to help them drive the loyalty of their relationship as well as your business?
That's good. Randy's taken over my job.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to. It's an interesting one because it gets to the point as to what is the role of a financial institution in the future of a small business. That's where it's an interesting one because I see there's a reciprocal arrangement, but I don't see that happening yet. I just see we can provide these great services that you can't do, integrate through single sign-on into this, and the world's your oyster. But then my point is, well, what's the role of the bank then? Are we just a deposit vessel that then just feeds money once it goes in?
But then it's an ecosystem, it's a catalyst. It's the way I'm plugging my business into. There is an app for that, where there is a bank for that, and my bank is connecting me to the world of everything I need for my business, because there is no shortage in what bank capabilities are today. I can do most of what I need with a bank. I just need to find the right people, right? Which is tough. Yeah. But banks are not short in their offering today. They are short in their relationship management and the counseling and the advice more than actually offering payment products, no?
I just want to, I agree. So we were in the UK when like around maybe March, and we were running our conference on SMEs, and Amazon was talking. And we were talking about financing. And Amazon was saying they're offering financing services to the people who were using Amazon as a platform. And the way they were decided how much money they could lend, it was based on their payments. And they were saying, well, I know how much you're transacting every month, so I know how much you're worth, and then you know what, I can own you X amount of money, and you don't even have to think about it. I'll take it to the source when you pay, so you won't even feel it. And they go slowly. So I'm not saying they're going to become a bank tomorrow, but we can see on how it's going to, and we can see on how they provide those services and taken slowly away from the bank. And they go to those providers because they provide them everything. They know when they need trade papers, right? So it's the thing like all of this knowledge, and then I know you need money. I know you're going to be short in cash in the next month because every year at this time, I know you're struggling for X, Y reasons. Here is some anticipated for you. Here is some money, $2,000, $1,000, whatever it is. And we are at the next level of analytics and next level of service to them. And it's not even talking to their bank. So yes, it's just all the things to start thinking. So yes, we're in a different ecosystem here, but the needs are the same. And if they can do that somewhere else, they will want to find ways to get it here as well.
Absolutely, it's about being proactive. Now, I'm conscious of the time. We've got 20 minutes, and as I said, I did want to open it up to questions. I want to tie all these threads together of the relationship, technology, and how technology can help into this modernization and data business intelligence piece, which is a huge part that we sort of spoke about on the call. So, if we look at payments modernization, here we are at the Payments Canada Summit, what's it going to take for this kind of new era in the SME payments space when it comes to using business intelligence to its best capability for a financial services provider or a neobank, whoever it is, to really service their SMEs? How do we look at that data and use it best?
I think I should, it's interesting because, as I mentioned, business intelligence is going to be critical to the relationship going forward. So to the point that I was maybe frivolously putting to Jeremy, the whole point of this is that when you work with third parties, as long as you can agree a form of data sharing, so you can get key insights back into your financial institution, then that can become part of your data insights engine. That data insights engine can drive that next available product, can provide funding or loans, which can be done much easier without necessarily the traditional small business way of anchoring it to a personal security, but base it on the cash flow of that business. So the ability to do stuff like that is really key. And so how you build that ecosystem, bring that data back, and then use that data to help that small business when we talk about financial wellness, I think is key. And that's where, when we talk about data, what does it really mean? Well, what it really means is that you're enabling the business that peace of mind we talked about. You're enabling them to say, look, you've got a scheduled transfer coming up. If it runs, you're going to go overdrawn tomorrow. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to provide you the ability to automatically transfer from an account where you've got it, or we've already pre-approved you for an unsecured small business loan that we're going to fund across. And you can set up those business rules in a digital platform. That kind of experience is all driven by the data. At the moment, the information you have on a banking system is pretty basic unless it's been categorized by, i.e. an accounting package has much richer data than we do, right? Or you use a third party like Yodlee to kind of like mix and spruce this stuff up. But the reality is that we need that data to be aggregated across multiple sources, brought into intelligent engine, and then feed the small business with great stuff, but also feed the small business account manager to the point where even if you've got a level 1 in the branch, they need to have a dashboard or scorecard that tells them something about those businesses. And if they don't, then we're really going to struggle, continue on this kind of like very loose relationship kind of era.
It sounds like a fabulous solution that you just outlined there. It's like, that sounds pretty good. To quote you said payments is the eye on the cash flow and the eye on the business, right? So bringing it back to payments, this data is the gold.
That's exactly, and so payments is the key because you open an account one time, you have a periodic event of opening a loan or doing something that is maybe an investment, but payments is your eye into the cash flow. So if you do outsource or QuickBooks uses a lot of this stuff, you need a reciprocal gateway that brings some of this insights back in. Otherwise, your payments, you take Square for example, does a great job of just looking at your point of sale activity. It looks at it, it says, hey, on the basis of this, you could, in the US particularly, got something called Square Capital. You'll qualify for a unsecured low-value loan, just on the basis of your point of sale activity. And there are other players just in Toronto that look at your invoicing and look at the payments and will give you funding based on the invoicing. That kind of like insights is what's really driving this.
I just want to add for the payment modernization. So when we look at pain points on payments, when we ask them, it's all about, we talk simplicity, but it's all about so the cash flow, we talk about it, but reconciliations and the fact that they have no idea when they got a payment where it's coming from and it was supposed to be paid 2 weeks ago, it's paid now, or I have to pay. And the amount of time they literally go and point, just took 2 receipts and the receipts just disappeared because they had this receipt in their pocket forever. Or imagine like a shoebox full of receipts and it's this time of the month or this time of the week, like I'm just gonna go through this. And it's really painful for them and they have no idea. And a lot of them are telling us, when they ask them, are you innovative? Do you use those innovation tools to manage your budgeting on your company? And they say yes. And they say, what are you using? Excel. So we heard that really level of being, that word. So when we talk about payment modernization, we talk about real-time payments. Obviously, who doesn't want their money now? Like, who doesn't want to make sure, when the money goes, it's go. I don't have to think about it. I have to make sure I hold those, $500 that I own in this account forever. but all about data-rich, payments and making sure this peace of mind and everything is balanced, and I don't have to wonder, oh my God, I'm missing $1,000 somewhere, or what is that check again about? And that's really gonna all the things you talked about, like saving my time, saving money, and having my back. I don't have to think about any of that. And talk about everything in one place. That's also something they feel it's a lot of like a big pain. If I want something, I have to go to that platform. Then I want to have analytics. I have this other platform that I found somewhere that somebody recommended to me. But they don't necessarily talk to each other. So we see a lot, like a lot of banks and everyone, partnering and providing those tools. But that's definitely, it's going to help. And everyone, I keep telling anyone, and me, like first, if I just have something, I have to press one button and everything comes to me. God, just like it's gonna save my life.
A surprise delight moment.
Exactly, that's really gonna make their life simpler. And they don't know where to look. They don't even know that all of this could exist.
So it goes back to the education piece again, Jeremy.
So when I'm reading or chatting around modernization of payments, I'm always very excited because I love this space, I love payments, I've been there for a long time, and I can't wait for real-time payments and others to be here. At the same time, in my shoes of a SMB now, it's not for me today. It's so far away. We will have changed prime minister or US president twice before I can access
Australia will have
payment.
changed it about 6 times, if it's any consolation.
So it's so far away to me. It's not my daily focus. My daily focus is how do I pay my employees next month? How do I secure a loan for next quarter? Real-time payment, wow, great, but where? When? It's not for today, it's not for tomorrow.
Or how much it's going to cost me, that would be the
And do you feel like that is the general feeling amongst...
It's not tangible enough.
Yeah.
First, as a SMB, I don't know what's going to come, right? I have little information. And two, what I have today is okay, it's good enough. I have Interac in Canada, it's fantastic when you look at Interac. Everyone complains, but it's fantastic when you compare to Europe or even to other countries. This is already great. You can have better, of course, and we deserve better, but it's not going to change my business. I'm not going to go crazy about my flower shop and become the best flower shop in the world because of real-time payment. However, today, and that's today, it's not future forward thinking, I can have instant deposit on a corporate business card, a prepaid card. Think what Square did that, Uber did that too in a few countries. I earn money, and that money is credited on my prepaid card. I can spend it right away with a Visa or MasterCard co-branded. That's fantastic. And this is new to the gig economy and that kind of things. This is not future thinking.
I mean, it's a good point. And what we, and just to the point around payments modernization, one of the things that we did is we launched something a couple of months ago where I launched it at a couple of credit unions, and all it was just a forward play. In a way, it was an invoicing solution that would reconcile your payment through the banking system, but it linked it to the Interac request to pay option. So what we were effectively doing is taking a close to real-time payment option, attaching it to something that we knew there was a bit of a pain point, which is that 2/3 of our businesses are home-based. They issue invoices. So how do we provide an electronic invoicing and payment solution with what you have now? Now, ultimately, in the future, when you get more information in the messaging, payment messaging, we'll be able to automatically reconcile in their online banking, show them everything that's paid. But it's almost like a forward play, right? And the same thing with payroll. We launched a payroll solution through online banking where we just used a real-time and a bill payment rail. But what it really meant to the businesses, they said, well, if I use a third party, it takes me 4 to 6 days. They pull my funds, my employee gets paid. But just by doing that, we reduced it down to 1 day. So little things that you can already do within the payments ecosystem, you can contract the time and maximize their cash flow. But ultimately, you position yourself, it's a long-term play. It's not, part of the issue is that most small businesses don't see the innovative products on their online banking, so it's a bit of a surprise to them. They expect the fintechs to be doing this. So it's a case of education and teaching them, look, your credit union partner has a couple of innovative products for your small business that incorporated online banking that lead the market because of time. of the payment, right? But this is all going to take a bit of time. But the payments mod and real-time rails, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear these timelines are moving further out, and that's it's a shame.
Stuff. It doesn't mean it's not great. It's going
No.
to be amazing,
Yeah.
but it's a long journey.
It is. And to the point around that, I mean, ultimately what a business wants is they want to send a payment and they want to receive notification the person's received it in the space of half a minute.
Yeah.
That should be simple.
Yeah.
And that should be the end game of where they're at. But at the moment, you go to a black hole and you wonder where it's gone.
But it does start with the incremental changes, right?
does,
To really
yeah.
make that
Marginal
big
gains.
marginal gain. I was just going to say that, Siri. Anyway, it's a bit of an internal RFI thing.
Yeah.
Right, 10 minutes and 17 seconds. But I'd love to open it up to the floor for a couple of questions. I feel like it's been a really fascinating discussion. Thank you. I've got a few more up my sleeve. But yes, please.
Good morning. My name is Pierre Robert from Prodigy Venture. My question is for Randy. Randy, you made the case that the bank can service better small business owners who were getting data from fintech. Why is it so difficult to have an open banking discussion with the bank when the feed is the other way?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question.
Just started off with a
That's a
light
good
question.
So it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And you know, part of me thinks if you look at the UK and Europe, and you think of Australia, and you think of how now you're getting this open banking environment where you're having third parties that have access to the bank's ecosystem, we're now seeing much more, and the banks themselves are actually using those API calls that are coming in, collating the data, packaging the data, and then selling it out to other businesses. There is a reciprocal kind of like relationship around the world, except not much of one here. And part of the reason for that is that we've had a little bit of a closed shop mentality in terms of data and privacy and a lot of concerns around what we're doing. And it's tended to hamper those kind of relationships. But I can see the two-way relationship is going to change soon. I actually can see it is moving towards, you've seen some reports on the future of banking and Payments Canada and open banking. So I think the ability to have read, write, and move access is on its way. And that will change the bank's mentality big time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the floor? Yeah, thank you.
Bill Humphreys, the Personal Financial Podcast. I'm obviously a millennial or exennial, depending on how you categorize. I don't want to go into a branch ever, really. I don't think financial institutions have my best interests at heart at all. I think they're just trying to sell products. So why should I trust them to care about my cash flow when they're just trying to fill their pockets? Really? Shouldn't there be a third party involved saying, this is how you should manage your cash flow? Because really the bank's only going to be able to recommend what they sell, right? They're not going to be able to say, hey, there's this great thing called QuickBooks Payments. You should go with that. You just press a button and get approved immediately. So why are we saying let's bump up the relationship management within the bank? When the bank can only provide what they provide, right? They're not going to actually find the best solution for me, right? It's the same argument with mutual funds, investments, all that kind of stuff, right? They're not going to say, hey, check out these low-cost ETFs, right? They're great, right?
Thanks.
So-
So is that true then, what Bo says, the banks don't care?
I have one question for you first, if you allow me.
Absolutely.
Who do you trust for your finance today?
Well, I use Tangerine because they don't have any fees. And I know they're owned by Scotiabank, which is unfortunate, but they haven't yet applied this fee model that they have, right? For business banking, I have no choice. I have to use one of the big banks. And that sucks because they're not helping me at all. I use QuickBooks Payments, press the button, get the payments. The only thing a bank is to me is like you were saying, are we just going to be the deposit and the lenders? Yes. That's really what I see banks as.
It's an interesting question for the panel. Your view?
Yeah, so I would say that if you take Xero, QuickBooks, all these players, they've built an ecosystem of services around their core product. If you go to China and you look at Ant Financial and Alipay, they built an ecosystem around what was essentially a QR code kind of buying app. If you go to other parts of the world, there are ride-sharing apps that are built financial services around the ride-sharing apps. So what have they all got any different from an institution, financial institution? They built an ecosystem that reflects the needs of businesses. So there's no reason why a bank shouldn't build an ecosystem of other partners that are connected to them that relates to your small business and your small business wellness. What's the difference between a ride-sharing company in Indonesia and Malaysia and a financial institution in Canada? And the reality is, when it comes to provision of services, no difference. They both are there to serve your needs. Now, there is a bit of cynicism, I sense, in terms of what financial institutions can do, and I get that because of our historical relationship and the 2008 banking crisis, all that stuff. But I think the dynamism within the banking industry has changed a lot, even in the 2-3 years I've seen it, and the openness that they're embracing new ideas is quite profound. So I sense that once you see the outcome of these different partners that are providing services, like Jeremy's company, for example, and it becomes more of a financial institution partnership as well, you'll see the value of a financial institution beyond just what you see it now as.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think gone are the days where banks are just lining their pockets, as you say. I would argue that, and I think that I don't think they can afford to do that anymore, and they have to be really thinking about their customer in a genuine way to stand up against their competitors, because that's what everybody expects. Just my 2 cents as a moderator there.
Yeah, and I think you had two parts in your comment here, in your question. One is, I'm busy, I'm a millennial or Gen X, I don't want to visit the branch. Fair enough, you have plenty of options today, online chat and phone and web-based. That's great, and it's going to be even better in the future. The second part of the trust issue and everyone getting richer on your back, and I would tend to agree in a way, but if I would play the devil's advocate here, what about the fintech? Are they just looking as well for the biggest valuation and the IPOs?
Yes.
And you could argue the same, right, in a way. So everyone has to behave the best they can to deliver their services. And it's normal that you have to pay something in exchange of it. When it's free, who's the product? If your product is free today, what are you giving away so that it's free? That's the question you should be also asking to yourself, because if it's free, maybe they are reselling my information, and you have a bigger concern around privacy, for example. You don't mind?
That's very normal.
Oh, that's funny.
That just
Okay.
goes back to
That's
choice. That's why
choice and trust.
you
Yeah.
choose and trust, and for you, that's the system that works.
Okay.
For others, something else might be
Also,
different.
information for lower costs.
No, it's really interesting to have that perspective.
Exactly.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
My name is Louis Greco. I'm from CNIB, and I probably don't belong in this conversation. Because
You sure do.
I'd like to ask Randy if you could just step back one small step and look at the consumer or the customer. Your conversation is fascinating, and it's all about industry and SMB, SME to institution. But what about the initial entry point to this whole system, where not all your customers are able to manipulate a payment terminal or are able to manipulate an online payment system. Randy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Albert terminal that was introduced in Australia a few years ago. But I'm just wondering if you have some insight as to how the landscape can be shifted in such a way that whatever the innovations coming at us, which are fast and furious, can be shaped in such a way that we don't exclude people. And it's a growing number of people as we all get older, present company included. As we all get older, and our ability to see, to hear, to manipulate, to comprehend these ever-growing, sexy, fancy devices becomes limited. So I'm just wondering if you can comment on that and your thoughts on the Albert terminal, if you're at all familiar with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know much about the Albert terminal. One thing I would say is in terms of, if you mentioned something that was quite interesting, because just in the past 2 weeks in Vancouver, where I'm from, I've gone out with developers, and in there I've seen these interesting new ideas that I think will apply to everybody, and it's basically paying with your QR code in the middle of a table. You know, like you have a quick response code, you scan your camera in, it gives you a very simple way to pay without actually going through any of this point of sale and wired terminals. So given that as an example, I think this ubiquitous technology is applicable to the smallest consumer all the way up, because everybody could, in theory, have a QR code in the future. But I think, Jeremy, you're in this space a bit more than I am, so you probably want to talk a little bit on this.
Thank you. So, having universal payment methods that can fit all kind of local consumers, diverse population, being inclusive, to me, it's one of the biggest challenge because it's really hard. Technology seems to be available to make really new products that can fit everyone, but realistically, because of cost, because of the required investments, because of banks willing to maintain their profits or challenger banks not raising enough money, it's not there, it's not universal enough today. And I think collectively we can do a better job at being more accessible and available. One thought on that as well is around cash. Every conference I'm attending, it's, oh, cash is dead, cashless is great. And over the past few weeks, it's kind of a changing trend where you see a few cities or states in the US banning cashless. You have Amazon Go now having kind of ATMs, machines in their stores, so that is accessible and inclusive for everyone. And I think the future is only going to be great if you can pay and manage your budget with any payment method, not just bank transfers, not just a credit card, not just an online wallet or a challenger bank account, also with cash and also with universality of payment method, because you have people that only rely on cash today or get tips in cash or are used to it and only trust that because it's tangible, right? And you should be able to manipulate that. You should not always think, oh, the future is fully electronic, let's go for it. You have to be inclusive not only for everyone in the society, but as well in the behavior of how can I pay and what's the best.
Fantastic. We're out of time, but final words of wisdom. Let's just go down the panel. Words of wisdom in this space, things that you think we're going to see, let's just say in 5 years' time, how financial institutions are going to look, what the industry looks like for small businesses in Canada. What would you impart to the audience?
I'll start, okay, right.
What do they need to what do we need to focus on as an industry?
It's all about choice. Yes, you need to have all this being innovative and provide all those tools and having everything in one place to make their life easier, but it's all about the choice. At the end of the day, they want to do things the way they want, the way they feel like, the way they please, and they want not to be told how to, like, you don't have a choice, you can only pay by checks or cash, or we can only accept this type of payments. They want to be able to go and do the things the way they want, talk to the people they want to talk to the way they want. So it's all about understanding them and giving them the choice.
Thank you. Randy?
I'd say in 5 years, what I'd hope is that does small businesses in your financial institution have a better chance of surviving than they wouldn't in another place? Okay. Does financial wellness actually mean anything? And if it does, how does that manifest in the services you provide to your small business to make it survive?
Thank you. Jeremy?
So very quickly, to me, it's all about integration and how payments can be integrated. It's already an ongoing trend, but it should be the main in the coming years. And if I can go to my partner, financial partner, whoever it is, where it's all connected, integrated with everything I need, even tools I'm not aware of that I can get recommended based on data. Other shops, other merchants having a similar profile are going to have these choices. This is a dream.
Fantastic. Thank you. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thanks for joining us.